talked to Duncan on Friday, and he was randomly like, hey, look, I got a big Mike Thomas article coming out, right? Here's a line from the Duncan article. The answer is as to what happened with Mike Thomas. The answer is complicated, but in the end, the blame falls squarely on Thomas. Plain and simple, the most talented receiver in Saints history dropped the ball. Love that. Great writing. Dropped the ball. I get it. Reportedly over the offseason, Saints told him to have surgery after the season. Thomas gets a second opinion. The guy said, let's rehab it. And the Saints agree. They said, we have this 3-month plan. So some of the details have been different. We have a 3-month plan with progressive benchmarks. And if you're not hitting those benchmarks, then it's time to get surgery. This is where everything went wrong. Thomas reportedly straight up started ghosting the New Orleans Saints. Over the next 3 months, he ignored multiple calls from Bo Lowry, who's now at LSU, but was a trainer for the Saints. He ignored calls from Curtis Johnson, the wide receivers coach. He ignored calls from Sean Payton. Duncan says that, like, we kind of surmise that Thomas maybe thought the ankle was doing just fine, only to figure out that it actually was not. I think this is a bit worrying to me. And then the final piece in all of this, Jake, is that Thomas tweeted today a picture that says, they tried to damage your reputation. You saved theirs by not telling your side of the story. So obviously he knows about this report coming out and he's upset by it. I viewed all of this as confirmation of what we said. Like Duncan said, this is squarely on Mike Thomas. You think there's a little more blame to go around maybe?
Not a ton, because Mike Thomas is a grown man. Mike Thomas is a professional. Mike Thomas is supposed to be a leader on the team. I just came at it from okay, if I'm the New Orleans Saints, I have got to do everything I can. Like, phone calls aren't enough. I have got to threaten with contract being withheld. I've got to threaten suspension. I've got to threaten something, because you are not doing what you're supposed to be doing. And in your contract, it says clearly what you're supposed to be doing is being on the field, doing everything you can to be on the field. Like, if you're hurt, T-Bob, and you know this, you played. If you're hurt and you're going to treatment and you can't get on the field, that's no problem.
Yeah.
That's no problem. If you're doing what you're supposed, even if you're not doing it the way you're supposed to be doing it, if you're showing up and you're going through it, I cannot do anything to you. But if I don't know what you're doing, if I don't know that you're getting the proper treatment, if you're not going to rehab, if you're not doing the things that is, as far as potential surgery, if it's not feeling good by this date, you have to threaten, hey, we're going to suspend you. You will not get paid. And God knows the NFLPA ain't going to do anything to stop it, okay? So here's the thing. Like, if I'm the Saints, I think you had to be a little bit more aggressive in your approach. Phone calls after a while, that's just not enough. And you want the player to be this mature adult, but sometimes in certain situations they just don't handle it the right way. I told y'all, like, when I had surgery by Dr. Bankston after my rookie year, I came back here, had surgery, rehabbed here. They called all the time to talk to Jack Marucci.
Yeah.
And Mike Thomas, I don't know if y'all know this, breaking news, is a little bit more important to the Saints than I was to the Chargers.
Yeah. So does it change your opinion at all because these were certainly options that these Saints could have dove into, but it does fly in the face in sort of the precedent that they've set and how they deal with players. They are very player friendly, right? I mean, there's a bunch of examples where, and Jeff points this out in his article, like when the Saints were going to draft Pat Mahomes, they called Drew Brees. Like they avoided the Aaron Rodgers BS where they called Drew Brees and said, hey, look, man, this is the deal. Like he has set a tone of wanting to be brutally honest with the players. This is the deal. We're thinking about drafting him. They took care of Marshawn Lattimore this offseason to where, remember, they reworked his deal. It's a dual benefit. They freed up cap space. Lattimore didn't get any new money, but you know what? I never realized this, and it was pointed out again in the Duncan piece. They did save some of his money because what they did was they changed a lot of money he's doing to make this year into a roster bonus so that if he misses time because of a suspension, right, then those game checks are not nearly as big as they would have been as that money's been moved around. So it's a dual benefit, but remember when they threw Emmanuel Sanders all those balls in the last game of last year so he could get the $500K bonus that he had built into to his contract? And then you remember what Janoris Jenkins was talking about, just the environment that Payne does and like how he deals with players like the adults. So it's like they had set this tone. And then does this come into play where there was already reports of friction last year between the staff and Thomas. And you're like, okay, we don't want to go with this nuclear option because, like, if you threaten Thomas at that point, are you worried? Because this is already the worry, it feels like now. Are you worried about completely nuking the situation to where it's irrecoverable?
I mean, y'all let me know what y'all feel, boys. If you're subtweeting anything, in your mind, that relationship is almost done, right? If you're subtweeting something like Michael Thomas is doing right now, it was at Twitter, Instagram, whatever. You know what I'm talking about.
I think it was a tweet that's been deleted. It was a screenshot that says they tried to, and it's in Comic Sans font. It's very funny.
So that tells you that's not a good thing. That's toxic. So I don't know exactly where the Saints go from here with this deal because you gave him all that money. You don't right now have the quarterback like a Drew Brees or someone who's been there for 5 to 10 years that can say, hey, Mike, man, look, I know things are going sideways, but we need you. I need you. Come out for me. Be there for me. Like Drew, to your point, which is a great point this morning, you probably have that. Drew's probably on the phone or on the plane, wherever Mike was, and he's going to make sure that he's doing the right things. Should you have to do that to a grown adult? No, but sometimes, you know what? You got to do it. I play with plenty of guys that sometimes, man, you had to walk them and hold them by their hand to that training room because they just did not want to be in there. They didn't want to do that. That is not what they wanted. And you just didn't have that situation because you had quarterbacks that were worried about bettering themselves, and they should have. They're about to be in a quarterback competition.
Well, and who knows? I mean, it doesn't say in the report, but it's not hard to believe that he could have even been ghosting Winston because Winston made such a concerted effort to practice with all the other receivers. I find it hard to believe that Winston just wouldn't have reached out to Mike Thomas to throw with him. And maybe he did, and I'm missing a report somewhere along the line, but he was with, like, Deontay Harris.
But even if he did, I'm saying it's just, like to your point, it just doesn't carry the same weight as Drew Brees.
No, for sure.
So that, this is just the perfect storm of a bad situation for the Saints. Now it's, what do you do now?
Yeah, because it feels dangerously close to already being an FU, I don't want to be here situation. If you're straight up ghosting and now subtweeting, like you said, that level of passive aggressivity never goes wrong. And I'm like, okay, Mike, well, then I want to hear your side of the story, right? Because right now it looks pretty indefensible. So if you feel like you have a legitimate case, and if you already feel like the relationship is poisoned, then leak your side. Then, like, I want to see what you have to say and see if there is any defense. Because right now, like Jake said, while even you could put this partially on the Saints, it is much more on the player who was actually hurt and had the ability to control that. So,
because now you have a situation where you have no experience at receiver, you have all this money tied up to a player that is disgruntled and right now feels like he's been disrespected, right, wrong, or indifferent. That's the way that he feels, and you've got no options. Like, you don't have options right now as far as to how to fix that problem because he's out, he had surgery, he's mad, and then you don't have options to it's August. You can't find someone on the streets that can give you production at that spot.
He's also kind of doing a disservice to his fellow wide receivers, too, because there's such a question about do you pay wide receivers or not in today's game. And when they paid him and he dominated year one, it was like, okay, this is like a huge boon for that position group. Like, you can pay and you can win, and they almost won the Super Bowl, right? They almost went to the Super Bowl. Now, all of a sudden, it's like, wait, was that actually a bad investment, even with a record-setting season the year after you got that money? And so, yeah, it goes deeper than even just him or the team. It goes some of his peers at the position. This is all very disappointing. But, hey, they say Marquez Callaway's, like, kicking ass. I mean, they do. They keep saying that he's like the, and there's a star receiver at camp every year. But we got to go to break. Let's touch on Callaway on the other side of this real quick. Keep it locked here on OTV.